My life and political thoughts as a tarot reader who thinks YouTube wants to know what the hell I'm thinking. What's our shadow card? Nine of coins. Eat the rich. Hello everyone and welcome to Aunty's Tarot. I recorded a bit of a rant earlier today when I was out on a walk. In it you will see that the secret to a good hair day is wearing my hair braided after I wash it and letting it dry that way, and leaving it in until the afternoon. And so I did that. I'm recording today with the lovely view, full view of my fish tank from the front. I took more baby platy fish to the local fish store yesterday, and I was like, oh, that's so much less crowded. But then it was like, it's not. There's always the same amount. There's always more. So yeah, I think I noticed how many little ones there are as I take out the biggest fry. There is only 3 remaining that are 3 and 4 months old from my orange wagtail, and that are also, well, she's a red wagtail, and the fish range from red to sunset wags. So that was interesting. My red wagtail produced sunset wagtails as well. So that was cool. And right now this is my snail nursery. I have baby snails in here. So when I took down the fry, I got a microfilter and a plant, and we've got snails going on in there. I film in all different views in my apartment, but it's not actually all that big. So right now, we're kind of at like the hallway where you walk in from the hallway. And this is my altar space, the bathroom, and my son's room. And the living room, you see me film over there sometimes. And then the other side of the living room where the fake fireplace is, and the TV. And my workspace. I'm just turning this camera holder around on the table. The other half of my workspace table is our dining table. So it's a 6-person table, and there's 2 of us, and it has like a divider thing down the center, and which holds my workspace, and all these drawers down the center, 3 on each side, which hold my deck collection. Yeah, so this is a living room that I turned into a living room, dining room, office, altar, because the dining room is my bedroom, and my youngest child, the one remaining at home, has the official bedroom. All right, I have a rant about how Black and brown and indigenous folks get reminded that violence isn't the answer every time there's white on white crime. And there's one example, I was like digging for my brain as I was walking and talking, that I just couldn't pull out of my brain. So I'm going to give you that at the end of the rant and give you the rant now. Okay, so things I wanted to talk about over the last few days. And I went to make a video a day and a half ago, which actually turned out to still be relevant, but I was really exhausted and tired and it was late, and I don't know that it's particularly clear, and there's exceptionally long pauses. All right. So, white on white crime happened, and BIPOC folks are being told to settle down and that violence isn't the answer. The thing is, violence actually is the answer. It's always been the answer to oppression, which is why white people fundamentally believe in telling us all that violence is not the answer. Violence is what ended slavery, not just in the United States of America, but elsewhere. Violence is what has ended oppression of various types and phases over and over again. And they always want to ignore the fact that violence is ongoing or talk about it will be worse. What they actually mean by the violence will be worse is they mean they will experience it too, which really is what white people in the United States are going through right now. It's a shock and horror that they have to live through all of this as well, and that they are scared. And because they are scared, they really don't want any of us doing anything accelerationist, because it puts them at risk, and they've never been at risk before, and they don't like being at risk, and they believe that they have a right to not be at risk, even if the end result of that risk is the freedom and liberation of other people, which FYI includes them too. Because here's the deal, white people, the world is changing. It is changing drastically, and oppression is being rebalanced by the billionaires, as it always was. It was, the billionaires of the 1400s who gave us colonialism, capitalism, and chattel slavery. And it will be colonialism that, and it will be the billionaires that restate things, and you will also equally be at risk. Everybody but the top experienced some form of oppression during the years of global colonialism. Obviously, white people did not have it as bad as everyone else, but workhouses and such weren't all that great for them either. So, yes, violence actually is the answer. And although, as per usual, this shooting of the fascist Charlie Kirk was done by another fascist who didn't believe Charlie Kirk was fascist enough, it is still all going to be utilized to remind BIPOC folks to settle down and that violence isn't the answer. And they are doing that by increasing the threat level for BIPOC folks, especially black folks. A bunch of HBUs, or black universities in the U.S. were shut down following Charlie Kirk's righteous shooting. Even if it was by one of their own, it's still a beautiful thing. Because yes, when fascists die, it is a beautiful thing. Did people celebrate when Hitler died, when Himmler died? Yes, they did. They did, as they should have. So yes, it is a beautiful thing that a fascist died. And I am not fucking ashamed of that. That is what it takes. To end fascism, you have to kill the fascists. To end chattel slavery, you had to kill slave owners. To end colonialism, you have to kill settlers. So his death was a beautiful and righteous thing, even if it was done by one of his own. Thankfully, it was done by one of his own, because that makes it safer for the rest of us. Because even with it being one of their own, everybody else is under increased threat in order to assure that we don't get any ideas about the one and only way we've ever been liberated from anything before. I know some people might want to think, well, what about the civil rights movement? Black, especially black, but also brown folks, were accused of being violent even when they weren't. So why bother being a pacifist if you're going to be accused of violence anyhow? And they didn't end oppression, they just made it more systemic. They made it so much more systemic that things like wealthy black cities haven't risen up since the civil rights movement. It was so... taking a pacifist route, because that's what white people insisted on, is how redlining happened. It's how Indigenous people in Canada had citizenship forced upon us, which we did not want, because we knew it would assimilate us. And it did exactly what was expected. There are now Indigenous people in so-called Canada who identify themselves as Canadians. And if you don't think that's fucked up, just imagine a Palestinian deciding to identify themselves as Israeli just because Israel was occupied them. Like, that'd be hugely fucked up. But Indigenous people in so-called Canada recognize that Indigenous people in the so-called USA were considering themselves Americans. And this was horrifying and linked to them being given citizenship. So Indigenous people in so-called Canada petitioned and protested and peacefully held signs against it. And while we managed to stop other aspects of what was called the white paper, and Canada likes to talk about how Indigenous people defeated the white paper and that brought them what they wanted, it didn't. Because the part that would impact the souls of our people and our understanding of identity, that part was the one thing that remained the most dangerous part. And that's what being peaceful gets us. The only time there were improvements in the lives of black and brown people was when we fought back violently. And if white people are going to use the killing of a fascist by another fascist to remind black and brown people that violence isn't the answer, then I am going to use the killing of a fascist by another fascist to remind our people that violence is how we end oppression. It is the only way we end oppression. I talked about how resistance and liberation is really only effective when there is violence. And I want to throw in a few other examples. South Africa. South Africa didn't end apartheid without violence. There was a lot of violence. And while the National African Congress, was this peaceful protest and political side of the movement and the liberation, they were only effective because of more physical and violent resistance to apartheid. It's imperfect, you can criticize it, but they won their fight. And the peaceful arm of the resistance is the part that gets shown afterwards in history by white people. But there was violent resistance. It was shown plenty on the news. If you're my age or older, you should remember. Okay. And then I want to talk about modern resistance here in the United States and Canada. So modern Indigenous resistance. I talked about the Black Civil Rights Movement was peaceful. They had guns and weapons as a show of force, but they were peaceful. It's not like they were outright attacking or trying to bring down the American state. But it got framed as being violent. And it really wasn't in the grand scheme of things. It just wasn't. Indigenous resistance in the U.S. and Canada, the only time we ever stopped continued and ongoing land theft, because it does continue in modern times, just taking smaller amounts because there's smaller amounts left to take. Just like you're killing smaller numbers of Indigenous people because there's less of us to kill. The only time we ever stopped land theft was with guns, whether you saw the guns on the news or not. Oka, we stopped the land theft of the sacred pines, which included burial and sacred and ceremonial lands for a white golf course. 1492 Land Back Lane stopped the theft of reservation lands to build a white settlement known as a suburb more than once. So even if you don't see the weapons, they're there. And those are the times we stop continued land theft. Whereas if you want to look at Standing Rock and No Dakota Access Pipeline, No DAPL, that's my home res where I was born and scooped from. It was peaceful. On the Indigenous and Allied side, the American side obviously was not peaceful. It was violent. But the response and the attempt at stopping this land theft for a pipeline failed, even with 10,000 people, because it was peaceful. That you can't stop a state with protest signs. You just can't. You can't stop a state with peaceful bodies that are just waiting to be arrested or worse, shot. You just can't. States have militaries and other militarized forces. You can't stop that with a limp body that's not going to fight or resist. You can't stop it with your fists. You can't stop it with your words. you do need all those things to occur. They all need to happen together. You need every aspect of the resistance, such as my South Africa case. You need every aspect of a resistance in order to win, and that includes the violent resistance. And if you discount that violent resistance, it's never going to happen. You have to support it, even if it's not you. You probably believe that your country has a right to have a military, even if you're not going to sign up for it. You probably believe there are circumstances where, you have to fight to stop and end evil. You probably think World War II was a good thing, even if you maybe wouldn't have been a soldier by choice. You have to support the resistance to the evil, regardless of what piece of the pie you belong to. And I want folks to think, every time you're told and reminded, don't overreact, stay calm, don't be happy that this monster died. Who's saying that to you? Is it white people? The ones who benefit by us, wishing the fascist, racist, transphobe had lived a full life? Are you kidding me? Do you wish Hitler had lived till into his grandfatherly years and been able, he said, his family cared about him, his family, his child or wife? Seriously, would you have said that about Hitler? No? Then don't tell us to feel that way about any other fascist or white supremacist. Just don't. Because I do want the fascists and white supremacists to disappear. And they aren't going to disappear just because I do spell work. Even though I think that's an important aspect of resistance. They aren't going to disappear just because I go to a protest. Even if I think that's an important aspect of resistance. They're going to disappear when they die. And when the regime is stopped. That's when they're going to disappear.
A regime isn't stopped by voting it out of government. It just tries again next time.
Eight of Wands. Eight Tuscan gaffy sticks. 8 Tuscan gaffy sticks. I love this because they're indigenous to Tatooine. And they did keep fighting back against settlers. And you know what? Evil people like Darth Vader, aka Anakin Skywalker, went and murdered them for fighting back against settlers encroaching on their land and deciding who's in charge of the water sources. All right. And yet, the fascists will ask us to mourn them. This couldn't get better. One more card. What do we got? Revan, Temperance. You need a balance of light and dark to, you need a balance of light and dark to fight the fascists. You do. And you can't sit there and give them empathy when they're down and crying about their losses, you know. When they are the ones telling you that empathy is stupid and weak, which both Darth Vader and Charlie Kirk said, then we don't need to give them empathy. Stop telling us to give these people empathy. The strongest path forward is that balance of light and dark, and support Indigenous resistance. The way through this is decolonization. What's our shadow card? 9 of coins. Eat the rich.